Welcome to Hammer TV, everybody. I'm Bill Adler, the Texas Hammer, and this is Jim Adler, the Texas Hammer. Today we're going to talk about maritime injuries and offshore injuries. So, Jim, if you talk a little bit about what the difference is between maritime law and the Jones Act, if you would take us from there.
Sure. Maritime law is the general law that applies to activities on the high seas. It involves all kinds of shipping, vessels, cargo, the great body of law that applies to maritime or ocean activities. The Jones Act is a really great law that protects workers on the high seas, or workers who are on any kind of floating offshore rig, or who are working on a cargo ship or a tanker ship.
All right. Well, who qualifies and who doesn't qualify as a Jones Act Seaman?
Well, in general, a Jones Act Seaman is anyone that's working on a vessel that's floating and is not permanently attached to the ocean bed, so to speak.
I see.
So you're talking about a crew member on a ship, let's say an engineer, or let's say you're on a jackup rig drilling for oil in the Gulf of Mexico. You're talking about a tool pusher. You're talking about your crew members, your drillers, your deckhands, etc.
All right, well, take us through what type of ships or vessels are protected by Jones Act law. I know you just mentioned some specific type of workers, but talk to us a little bit about vessels which are protected by Jones Act law.
Well, when you're talking about the vessels that are protected by Jones Act laws, you're looking at members of the crews of vessels that are engaged in ocean activities. Or they could be on rivers working on towboats or tugboats or push boats, or workers on barges, crew members on barges. So that there's a lot of equipment and cargo and chemical stock that goes up and down rivers in this country and goes across the intercoastal canal. The Jones Act is a law that gives tremendous protection to these workers. You're talking about your workers on ships, any kind of ships, whether it's a cargo vessel coming into the Houston Ship Channel, or a vessel, a tanker, any kind of maritime vessel that's hauling cargo, or any kind of products, feedstocks, chemicals, hauling crude oil, what have you. Then you've got, so those are basically, you talk about your blue water seamen under the Jones Act and your brown water seamen under the Jones Act. The blue water seamen are the guys that work on the high seas. So they're going from country to country, and American-owned vessels and workers on American-owned vessels are protected under the Jones Act from injury. The brown water workers are the workers typically that work on oil rigs, or they're involved in drilling activities. So that you're talking about, there's a semi-submersible drilling rig, there's a drill ship, there's a jackup ship, there's the supply boats that bring supplies out to these rigs in the Gulf of Mexico, the crane operators, all the people that live on board a rig. They're all protected under the Jones Act if the rig is floating in the Gulf of Mexico.
I see.
Or in the North Sea, or in Alaska, what have you.
Well, talk to us a little bit about Admiralty Law and what specifically it is.
Well, Admiralty Law is the general body of law that's developed over the years that applies to ocean activities. And when people are working on water, it protects cargo. It protects any kind of activities and applies to any kind of activities that involve shipping activities or offshore rigs, any type of work on the ocean or the seas. Or maritime law can be considered to apply to activities in a harbor involving vessels, different type of vessels.
I see. All right. So tell us a little bit about why it's so important that you hire an experienced Maritime or Jones Act lawyer so they can help you on your claim. Why is it so important?
Well, because typically workers are hurt on ships or offshore rigs, and they're covered by the Jones Act, number one. So they need a Jones Act lawyer who can help them with their injury claim and their damages claim. They're also entitled to benefit from the doctrine of unseaworthiness. In other words, vessels need to be safe and seaworthy, and if they're not, there's a strong claim for unseaworthiness. Finally, workers are entitled to maintenance and cure. So maintenance is the weekly benefits that they're paid, and cure is the medical benefits that they're entitled to be paid. Those are the types of things that you find under the Jones Act. And can we talk a little bit about the history of the Jones Act?
Sure, tell us a little bit about the history of the Jones Act.
You know, it's interesting because the Jones Act was based on the railroad laws. The Federal Employees Labor Act that protected dangerous activities by railroad workers working on the railroads in the old days. And these kind of railroad workers were exposed to very hazardous conditions, and to this day, if they're working in interstate commerce on the different railroad lines throughout the United States, they're protected by the FELA, the Federal Employees Labor Act. So that protects your railroad workers. It was then considered important in America, in the United States, that the Jones Act be designed to protect workers on ships, blue water seamen, and the brown water seamen that we talked about. And the whole idea of the law is that it has what they call the featherweight test of negligence. The workers are considered to have the highest degrees of protection. And whether they're crew members, deckhands in the engineering department of a ship, or whether they're crew members on an offshore rig, the Jones Act gives them high protection, and they just have to meet what we call the featherweight test of negligence, which means they're entitled to be fully protected more so than a person working on land that gets injured.
I see. Well, if you could give everybody the number if they've been involved in a Jones Act or maritime case and they need to call us, what's the number to call?
If you've been injured working on the water, please call us at 1-800-567-7575. You can also contact us on the web at jimadler.com. We're here to help injured workers who are hurt at sea or in the Gulf of Mexico or anywhere working over water. I realize that it's dangerous out there for folks working. Everything's moving. You've got high seas. You've got dangerous conditions. Those storms are bad.
Well, thanks everybody for watching Hammer TV. We'd like to know your comments, your questions. We'd like to know interesting topics that you want us to discuss on our future shows. We'd really love it if you liked us on Facebook or shared this video with your friends or family members that we could potentially help. That would mean a lot to us. So this is Bill and Jim Adler signing off for today. Everybody, if you need us, call us. We're here to help. Thanks.